Hello, friends. My name is Alicia Mathlin, and these are the Deeper Wellness Talks. Every Wednesday at 12 p.m., we meet online and we talk about the things that rise up in our hearts. Last couple of weeks, we've talked about stress and anxiety. We looked at meditation, and today's very important topic is forgiveness. I am a yoga teacher, a meditation instructor, an essential oils educator, conscious living guide, and a holistic nutritionist. And I use all those modalities to inform the counsel and the advice, unsolicited advice sometimes, that I give to women to try and help them lead happier, healthier lives. So today we're going to dive right into forgiveness because it's such a broad topic and it's so important that we cover as much as we can. I know there's a lot of excitement about this particular one, so let's get into it. I want to talk to you first about the two kinds of forgiveness, or the two kinds of forgiveness that I think are the most important. And the first one is not forgiving other people, right? So someone has done something to us. Someone has caused us harm, betrayed us, anything along those lines. Those are the bigger things, but then there's the more subtle things, right? There are the things like not being emotionally available in the moments that mattered, not showing up, or not being there, right, when we really needed them. So not forgiving other people, yes, is characterized by big things that can happen, but I think it's also important to note that sometimes we don't forgive people for an accumulation of microaggressions that hurt our hearts, right? So that's one category. The other category that I think is probably more important is when we don't forgive ourselves. This is self-blame. This is not letting it go that we made choices that didn't serve us at different times in our life. This is, when things have happened to us by other people, at the hands of other people, blaming ourselves for allowing it to happen and things like that, right? Not forgiving ourselves is actually stronger in terms of its impact on our well-being, right? Because that internal dialogue or that self-loathing that generates from self-blame is so bad for you. And when I say that, I mean like this is impacting the way you think. This is impacting the way you feel, the way you love, the way you communicate, the way you set goals even, right? Like this is impacting everything. So, again, there are two types of lack of forgiveness or not forgiving or not letting go that I think we need to address today. The first one, as I said, is not forgiving others. And then the second one is not forgiving ourselves. Okay? They're very, very, very important to know that there is a distinction between both, but also that sometimes when things happen to us with other people, we blame ourselves. And that's when those two things come together and create an even bigger issue for us. Okay? The second thing I want to take note of is there's an idea that if we are to forgive someone or ourselves, we are accepting of what has happened. We are accepting the hurt. We are accepting the pain. We are accepting whatever was done to us, right? We're somehow saying that it's okay. And that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness isn't a cop-out. It's not saying everything that happened was fine, it's water under the bridge, we're all good. No, it's not saying that at all. Forgiveness is saying You will no longer have power over my well-being. Forgiveness is freedom. Freedom from the weight of anger, pain, resentment, suffering. Forgiveness is freedom from self-loathing. And it is forgiveness is also freedom from the idea that there's somehow something wrong with us. There is nothing wrong with us. Yes, things have happened to us in the past. Yes, we blame others. Yes, we blame ourselves. But it doesn't mean that we are somehow flawed or broken or in need of fixing. And it's really important to know that. What has happened to you does not have to define you. It does not have to become, the highlight reel of your story, of your life story, of your identity. Which brings me to the next thing. We often carry around our inventory of disappointments, of hurt and pain. And I'm not talking about day-to-day stressors. I'm talking about the stuff from the way, way back. From the childhood, from the teens, from the early 20s, wherever you are at on that spectrum. We carry all of that energy around with us because we believe that somehow it's part of our identity. When I meet someone and they say very quickly after, I do this for a living and I'm married or not married or have kids, blah, 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 and they jump to, but also when I was a kid, this happened. And that happened, and this person broke my heart, and this person betrayed me. And I'm not saying that those things aren't valid or important. I am just saying that you should ask yourself if they deserve to be a part of your identity now. You should ask yourself if who you are in the present is still that person from the past. Sure, you can have those pieces of you, but are you still the person who was harmed? And it's important for you to distinguish between the person who has grown and evolved and gone on to lead a different life from the person who was harmed. And I'm not saying that this person doesn't have value. I'm not saying that the part of you that was hurting or that experienced the pain doesn't exist anymore. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying, can you accept that this is a part of your story, but not your entire story? We spend a lot of time living in our past self. Whether it's the kid who didn't get enough attention, or when you were the girlfriend who got her heart broken, or the daughter whose parents were narcissistic. We spend a lot of time in the past being that person in that role, forgetting that we are not physically there anymore. Mentally and emotionally we might be stuck there, But physically, we've moved on. Physically, we've built a life. And yet somehow we are holding on ever so tightly to an idea of ourselves that existed so long ago. And I think it's really, really important to know and keep knowing and keep thinking about the idea that forgiveness is freedom. Freedom from the weight, freedom from the pain, from the anger, from the suffering, the resentment. I keep saying that because we think, our ego tells us that if we forgive, then somehow we've accepted that that person didn't respect us. We've accepted that that person didn't think we were good enough. We've accepted that that person didn't love us the way we deserve to be loved. And that is not the case. If you will forgive, if you let go, you are in fact saying that your voice, your opinion of yourself, your love of yourself is the most powerful thing in your life. And you then reclaim the power that is yours, that informs your identity, that informs your self-awareness, your self-love. You reclaim your power when you decide to forgive. You reclaim your autonomy when you decide to let go. And that is the purpose of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not for the benefit of other people. Forgiveness is for the benefit of your own mind, your own heart, and your own body. If we continue to believe that holding on is going to somehow liberate us or cause harm to the person that harmed us, or whatever the thinking is, and sometimes it's just attachment, right? Sometimes we're attached to that story of that harm. We're attached to the idea that, you know, the person we loved cheated on us. We're attached to the idea that our parent was narcissistic or emotionally unavailable. We're attached to the idea that our best friend betrayed us, and that's part of our identity and part of our story. And who would we be if we couldn't define ourselves that way? I'll tell you what, you would be free. You would be happy. You would be lighter in spirit. You would feel so much better because you are no longer waiting around for an atonement that's never coming, for a big talk or a conversation where the big apology comes and the person's like, I did something awful to you, I'm so sorry. No. If you are waiting for that, you could potentially wait your whole life. I know people who have waited for that apology from their mom. Then their mother has passed away. Then what do you do? What do you do when the person who has harmed you has moved on and is happy and living their lives? And you're still in that place. You're still in that past. You're still held hostage by a version of yourself that may no longer be true. I think it's important, so important, to free yourself by taking acts of forgiveness and by letting go. This isn't going to happen overnight. But every day you have to decide within your own heart that you matter more than the other person, than the thing, than whatever it is that you can't let go of. Your health matters, your happiness matters, your capacity to love matters, your capacity to achieve matters. It has to matter more. You have to decide again and again that it matters more, that you matter more than all of that stuff. The idea for this call came about when I realized that I had a sort of effervescence to my personality, to my energy, I would say. I felt lighter and I felt brighter. It was easier for me to make choices to nourish myself well. It was easier for me to sleep, and it was easier for me to really, really love the people that I love. And it occurred to me that I had no one left to forgive. And I keep saying that to myself because we don't realize how heavy it is until we let it go. And I was only able to do that by deciding that I didn't want to be angry all the time. I didn't want to be in pain and suffering because of something that someone did however many years ago. My life is happening right now, and I want to be happy. I want to be here for it. I want to feel full of purpose and presence. And I can't do that if I'm holding on to the past. How can I be in the present? How can I plan for my future if my hands are full of the past? It's just not possible. So you have to choose. You have to decide that you matter right now. Your life right now matters so very much. So here are my 4 tips to work on forgiveness. The first tip is to take a forgiveness inventory. And I mentioned this yesterday in my newsletter, and I'm going to say it again because it's so important. Grab a piece of paper. Make a list of the people and the things that you cannot forgive. Column 1, identify. Column number 2, write down how long it's been since that thing has happened. Write down how long you have already been holding on. How long you have not forgiven. How long you have been in a place of suffering and pain and anger. How much time has passed already? In the next column, I want you to write down how much more time you plan to dedicate to this pain and suffering. How much more time do you plan to dedicate to not letting go? Look at it. Look at it. Really, really look at it. Bring it to your consciousness. Take it out of the background of your mind. Bring it to the forefront and really look at it with a mindful eye and ask yourself, How much time, since time is not a renewable resource, how much time does this person, does this thing, does this self-loathing, this pain, this anger, this resentment deserve? Take your power back. Make some decisions, some conscious decisions about this thing. Don't just let it float around in the background, pulling your strings. Okay? Number 2, rewrite and rename your story. When we talk about ourselves from a position of the victim, this happened to me, this person did this to me, I'm mad at myself because I haven't forgiven, I haven't let go, right? That kind of repetitive internal language and sometimes dialogue, because we're telling other people, creates an energy that is so strong and so, and I'm going to say the word negative, even though I don't like labeling energies, but I'm going to say negative. Because that dialogue says that the harm is more important than the healing. I'll say that again. That kind of negative, repetitive dialogue about our story says that the harm is more important than the healing. And my love, you have to decide to heal and to focus on your healing. So some of the language you can use instead of that heavier negative stuff is, when those thoughts arise, rather than saying, this happened to me, what if you could say, the important lesson I learned from. The important lesson I learned from having narcissism in my upbringing was that we are incapable of really loving others if we cannot love ourselves. And so, as a result, in my own life, in my present, and for my future, I will practice the self-care and the self-love that is necessary to make me the person I want to be when it comes to loving others. So we're changing the language of our story. We are taking the sting out of it and transforming it into wisdom in preparation for healing. Because the more we communicate about it as wisdom instead of harm, we say to ourselves, the healing is more important than the harm. We cue our body, our mind, our heart that the healing is more important than the harm. And that is what's required to move forward and to live a full and powerful life. The next thing I want you to know is that if you don't let go, you're blocking your potential. So many people come to me and they say that they have these goals and they're so close and they want to do things and they want to achieve things, and I say to them, who do you have left to forgive? And they're always surprised by that question, but the reality is, as long as you're still holding on to the person whom you cannot forgive, then you cannot make space for everything that is supposed to happen for you in your life. Because you keep saying that this person and this thing is more important. That's the choice you keep making. And I would like to invite you to understand that not forgiving and not letting go is blocking you. It's a big block in front of you and the life that you seek and the person that you're trying to become and the fulfillment of the vision that you have for your life. You have to understand that. So number one, again, write out your inventory of forgiveness. Write out how long you have been not letting go and living in that place of pain and suffering and resentment. And then write out how much longer you plan to do it. Okay? Number two, work on rewriting and reframing your story when you're speaking about it. Become more conscious of the language that you use. This person betrayed me can become, I have learned to trust myself above anyone else, to listen to my own instincts, to be present for the signs or whatever it is. But you've learned that to put yourself back in the power position. Right? And number three, I really want you to understand that not letting go and not forgiving others or yourself is not just about that. It's blocking your potential. It's inhibiting your ability to have self-love or to practice self-care, because we keep telling ourselves that this is more important. The past is more important than the present. So we're not directing any energy into our present. We're not directing any energy into planning for the future. Then you have to understand that those two things go together. The more you're able to let go, the more space you make for abundance in the present and the future. The last thing I want to share with you is I have started to use essential oils, not just because they smell great, but because they have an impact on our emotional well-being. So the oils that I use for forgiveness and that I recommend people use for forgiveness are, first, doTERRA's geranium. Geranium is the oil of love and trust. And you need that when you're practicing forgiveness, because you've got to love yourself and trust yourself more than this thing you've been holding on to. The next one is bergamot, doTERRA's bergamot. Bergamot is the oil of self-acceptance. If you are having trouble forgiving yourself, then that is an issue of self-acceptance. And sometimes we need to push along, and that's where essential oils come in, because they impact our biochemistry and they help us with our thinking and our feeling. It's hard to believe we're at the end of our call. I'll be sure to talk about this subject again. Next week we're talking about self-love. Be sure to register. My name is Alicia Mathlin. This is The Deeper Wellness, and this has been Forgiveness. Thank you.